welcome everybody. How you doing? Welcome to another Watts Weekly. I haven't done as many recently, but I'd like to pick it up again in the new year. And I'm going to get into a little bit of a conversation today about one of my favorite artists, Frank Frazetta, and a unique experience I had actually meeting him in person before he passed. Probably about, I'm trying to think, maybe 20 years ago now. So it was interesting story, and I thought it would be worth doing a Watts Weekly on because he is such a big influence of mine. Ties all the way back to when I was a child, probably around 5, 6 years old. My mom would drop me off at my dad's studio, and my father is a really good illustrator, as you all know, and he had a studio down in downtown San Diego with probably 5 or 6 other illustrators at the time, and they all shared rent in this old mansion. It was kind of like this haunted mansion. It was really weird. It was a Victorian house, and there was some strange going ons there that my dad would talk about late at night, and it was funny. So it had this mystique around it, right? And then my mom would drop me off and go do errands, and I would kind of wander between all these different studios, and I would draw all day, right? Because that's what I did. I was really an avid little draftsman even at that age, and I would draw from the Frazetta covers actually, which looking back now, I'm not sure if that would be all that looked upon all that favorably by most people. A 5-year-old, 6-year-old drawing these crazy scenes, but he just loved the covers. He loved this new artist, Frank Frazetta, that really wasn't a lot known about him at the time. He didn't have all the books like you're seeing here out. He hadn't become this kind of iconic illustrator yet. He was just this young painter that did these really robustly romantic, kind of over the top Conan type figures with real dynamic aspects to them and really cool looking. And as a kid, I just drank that in and I drew from it a lot. I remember going to the San Diego Comic Convention when I was around 7, and it was up in this old hotel where you had to kind of walk through the kitchen and you came out into the conference room and there were a bunch of guys selling comic books on fold out tables. It was nothing like it is now. And so fast forward maybe my early 20s, mid 20s, probably about 25, 26 years old, I had started a small atelier, which is now what you guys know as Watts Atelier. At the time, it was Jeff Watts Art Instruction. And I was in downtown San Diego, not that far from the convention. And actually, in the building I was in, San Diego Comic Con was in the corner building suite. And I had another little tiny suite that I was just starting to teach in. And so I got to know them really well. And I got to started doing some ads for them, and I was into the comic genre at the time, thinking I might go into that, might go into concepting. Didn't know whether I was going to fine art or what I was going to do. I was so many options were open at the time. But anyway, so I talked to them, and they said, hey, if you want to do an ad for us on one of our Dark Horse comic covers or whatever on the back of it, we'll give you a booth. And so I did that. I took it, and I went in, and I started kind of pitching and peddling my wares for art education, because there were a lot of comic artists that really needed to know anatomy, composition, all these things that I was getting really good at, and thought I could contribute something to training people that wanted to go into these industries. One of these years when I was doing it, I heard that Frank Frazetta was going to be at the convention. You never really saw Frank out in public much, but apparently some things had transpired or whatever. He was kind of doing a little bit of a tour of, cleaning up certain aspects of stuff. He was a very vivacious man, very kind, in my opinion, when I met him, and I'll talk more about that. But he was very, he had a perception, because he was so direct, of being kind of a jerk, sometimes, and he really wasn't. It was just, in that industry, as any of us that have worked in it know, it's kind of cutthroat. It can be difficult, and it can be, when you're a young painter, sometimes, things would happen, like they might keep your covers or not give you your covers back and this and that. And Frank's wife, Ellie, who I also met that year at the con, was one of his biggest advocates, and one of the ones that I think was most reliable or responsible for him becoming such an iconic marketing success, because she really headed that up from what I saw and what I understood. And she was a really, really direct woman as well. You imagine, Brooklyn, New York, it's that kind of, I wouldn't say bada bing, bada boom, but it was kind of like, it was pretty direct. So, which I love, because that's kind of more my personality. Is it's a little bit more of a direct personality. I wear my heart on my sleeve. You're going to know how I feel. You're going to know what stance I'm taking on stuff very easily. So anyway, I was at the Comic Con, and I had prepared a painting, which I don't have here right now, but I'll see if I can find it. It may be somewhere in my archives, but it was a Jaguar God was a character of his. and I was doing a picture of this jaguar got straddling this big ape, and just kind of conquered this ape. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to prepare this illustration, and I always demoed at my booth because I usually demoed Frazettas. I would do a Frazetta copy. I loved everything that he did. So I would sit and I would do that, and people would come by and watch me, and they'd ask about the school, and I would talk to them about that. And I felt like, what better thing to do at the Comic Con than one of my iconic guys that I love do master study. Do a master study of Frazetta and charcoal. Do a little painting demonstration. So I was always doing that kind of stuff. So I prepared this extensive, pretty complex painting, and I was doing it. And sure enough, I had heard rumblings that Frazetta was somewhere around the building. And he had like a fake name on and everything, but everybody knows what he looks like, so it was really funny. This was remember this was pre-internet, right? So this is no internet, and so my wife was there, and she's a really, really, really wonderful, good-looking girl, and I said, can you go over and see if you can wrangle Frank and get him over to the booth? Because, well, let me step back and digress one moment. But early that morning, the reason I knew Frank was really there, I was warming up at my booth, and I was just sitting there doing some warm-up sketches, right? I was working on a Frazetta, warming my hand up, getting ready to do this painting in hopes that he might be in the building. And this lady walks into my booth, and a lot of times the exhibitors will come in early and they'll wander around, and you'll have like some of the better guys kind of pop into your booth before all the public comes in, because it's like a madhouse when that happens. So I met some of my favorite artists that way. But anyway, I had this lady milling around in my booth, and I wasn't paying much attention because I was busy drawing a charcoal drawing of one of Frazetta's. And she comes up over my shoulder and she goes, I remember when he did that piece. And I turn around and I'm like, oh shit, you must be Ellie Frazetta. And she goes, yeah. And she shook my hand, and she looked around the booth. She goes, oh, this is great stuff. And she was really complimentary. And she said, I'll have to have Frank come by and see this booth. And I was just thrilled to have met her. And she had all of his drawings, pencil drawings, in a little folder this company Verotic did, which was Danzig's company, and they were doing a collaboration. And he had done this really cool pencil book, and she had all the originals, so she laid them all out. And I was nerding out on the whole thing, and just kind of being a fanboy, like, oh my god, I was looking at all of them, and I was so thankful that she was allowed me to look at them. And I was, just kind of combing through them and looking at them close up, which is so wonderful to do, looking at originals. So anyway, that went by, and I was doing my booth, and I was doing my booth thing, and all of a sudden, and later in the day, there was like a lot, you see a little horde of people following this guy around, and so I said, I think that might be Frank, to my wife. Can you go over and see if you can get him over here? So she went over and, introduced herself, started talking to him a little bit, and of course, Frank has an eye for the women. I mean, he likes, good-looking girls, so he was like, kind of followed her over, and when he got into the booth, it was so cool. It was like, otherworldly. Here's one of my icons, one of my heroes, and I'm kind of a bit, I'm not terribly tongue-tied, but I was just really like amazed that he was there. And apparently there was this photographer that I wasn't aware of somewhere taking pictures of this whole thing transpiring, and he came up and he spent about an hour with me critiquing the painting I was doing. And here's some actually cool photos that I'll put up of him, and me. I look like I'm 12. But he's there, critiquing, and he's like, going over, the painting, telling me what he would do differently. And then here, of course, him explaining, hey, I would do this. I love that. This is cool. And it was just really neat to get like a full-blown critique, for an hour from the Grand Master of illustration and fine art, of fantasy art. And so I was just blown away. Just so complimentary. He was so nice, and he said, you should come out and see me sometime at my museum, and I'll show you around. And I said, oh, sure. So we exchanged phone numbers and everything, and I was again, this was pre-internet, so I remember I was so excited. And so anyway, the Comic Con ended, and I went back to my studio, and a couple days later I called, I think a week later or something, I called. I didn't want to do it like immediately, but I called him, and we talked about Harleys, we talked about sports, because we talked about hardly any art, right? Frank's a very funny guy. He's passionate about, physical activity stuff. Like, he was a great baseball player, great physical specimen. And I have a strong background in athletics, so we both kind of resonated on that, but I also love Harleys. I always have. So we started talking about that, and we started talking about all these things, and we really kind of hit it off. And we had about a good, hour conversation. And I had mentioned wanting to, maybe take him up on me coming out. And he said, yeah, sure, come on out, da 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 da. Okay, so another couple weeks transpires, or go by, and I'm getting ready to book my trip out. I have no money. I'm broke. I remember this very distinctly, and I really had no right going out there because we had a term starting pretty soon, and I was like, oh shit, I got to come back, and I don't have the money, and I'm gonna have to pay all this money to go out here. I don't even know where I'm going. I've never been to Florida. He was living in Florida at the time in a place called Boca Grande, Florida, and it was kind of down on the south end, but it was on the Gulf side. Really cool little island, but very surreal. And I called up again, and this time I got his daughter, and his daughter said, you can come out, but there's no guarantee he'll be here. He kind of does what he wants to do now, and a lot of people come and visit. So yeah, come on out. We'll show you around, but I don't know if he'll be here or not. So now I'm wondering, is this even worth going out, right? Because I'm going to go all the way out there, spend all this money I don't have, and I'm going to maybe meet him, right? And I've already met him, and I already had a good experience meeting him. I thought, well, what happens if I go out there and he's kind of a jerk, and he's different than I'd envisioned, and so I had all these trepidation, but I went for it. Something inside me just said, go for it. And it's when you're a kid, you think you're going to live forever, so you're kind of thinking, oh, I'll meet him again, I'll see him again somewhere, And this is like, so something really prompted me to do it. So I bought the ticket, I flew out. And it was literally it was like the Twilight Zone. From the minute I landed in freaking Florida, it went Twilight Zone on me. And I'll tell you why. I mean, it was just the weirdest stuff was happening. So I pull into this little hotel that we booked, and it's literally like Bates Motel, right? It's the creepiest freaking place out in the middle of these Everglades, right? And I'm like, okay, this looks like Jurassic Park, number one. And I go into this little place, and there's this creepy dude at the front, and there's no cell phone crap. And there's nothing to really communicate, right? So I'm out there, and I'm kind of a little nervous, and I get this room, and in the middle of the night, someone tries to get in my room. And I'm like, the door starts opening, and I had the deadlock on. Luckily, I was smart enough to put the deadlock on. But this place just freaked and creeped me out. I got up, I run out, I open the door really quickly to see who's out there. There's nobody there. It's like this creepy, hallway. I shut the door, and I'm thinking, okay, that's kind of weird, I mean, I got this, because the guy was asking me all kinds of weird questions at the front that I thought was kind of out of context. And I thought, it's very strange. So, being a little bit paranoid, I just was like, okay, I'm locking the door, I'm deadbolting. And luckily enough, but anyway, so that was the beginning of it. And I'm like, this is weird. So I get up early in the morning, I didn't sleep well at all. I get my little rental car, I drive out to this Beaufunk nowhere. I mean, it's like, it's like, it just goes forever, right? And it's just, I've never been to Florida, so it's just Everglades, it's just flat as a pancake. And so, I get to this little area that, and there's no GPS, right? So it's maps. And I don't know if most of you probably have never used old school maps, but wow. And I got no navigator, so I'm trying to navigate, I'm trying to drive, I'm trying to read the map. I'm like, geez, where am I at? Nobody to call, don't even have a phone number to call Frank. And I get to what I imagine is this next leg, and I pull into this little like Norman Rockwell retirement community that looks like, again, something from Smallville or something, whatever. It's like some weird, kind of like, oh man, here we go again. So I get there, I stay over at this place, a little hotel. I get up in the morning, I go in this little diner that literally looks like I walked out of something like Back to the Future or something. And I'm looking around, I'm like, there's no way Frazetta's museum is here. I mean, this is like, I think I'm in the wrong place. I really don't even know where the fong I am. And I asked the guy, I go, I'm looking for this guy, Frank Frazetta, after I had my breakfast. And I'm not sure I'm in the right place. And he goes, no. It's, he's right across from here is his museum. And I'm like, oh, shit. So I go out, there's palm trees. It's just weird, I'm thinking this is not where I pictured Frank's, stuff being. And I go over and I ring the bell, and it's kind of this big door and, and there's a house, the museum behind it. And sure enough, he opens the door, and there's Frank. And I'm like, shit, I'm like, oh my God. So I go in, and Frank's excited, and I get to, I walk back there. Ellie's there, and it's just us three. I go into the museum, and I'm walking around, and he's showing me every painting, and he's talking about things. And it's all of the iconic ones, right? The Death Dealer, and all these, the Mammoth, and all these beautiful paintings that I've always grown up loving. And I'm just like, kind of starstruck, but mostly just surreal, like the whole thing so far has been kind of weird. And so I'm walking around the place for an hour or two, and Helly's kind of watching me because I swear, Frank's the sweetest guy. He'd give you one of those paintings probably. I mean, and she just watches him like a hawk because I think he's just like a. The impression I got was he was like a 70-year-old 5-year-old. He had the enthusiasm of like a little kid, and he was like so excited to show me. And I would be pointing out things like with the snow giants, where the guy just got his neck slashed, and he's kind of leaning back, and the one guy, or, the big guy's holding his neck, and he's like pulling the sword through, and all you see is a couple drops of blood in the snow. And I always thought like how Hitchcock type of a storyteller Frazetta was, and how tasteful, even though it's people would say tasteful, but I mean it was like the comic stuff that came after that was just so gory and crazy, and I loved that Frank never really. It was always the moment before, the moment after, but it was never like gratuitous, right? So I commented on that, and he was like, "Oh, you picked up on that?" Yeah, he was so excited. "Oh yeah, I love putting these little things in," and he was just like really incredibly animated and everything. So we went for about an hour or two, and then we stopped and had some lunch. And his younger daughter, one of them was there that looked very much like one of his characters, came out. I can't remember if it was Heidi or who it was, but I do remember meeting her, and she was quite young at the time, and I talked to her a little bit, and then we had a sandwich. We were sitting there having lunch, and I'm talking to Frank, and I'm thinking, what planet am I on? And then all of a sudden, I thought that was it, right? So I thought, oh, okay, that was a wonderful trip. I'm so thankful I came out. And he said, you should come have dinner with me tonight. I got this movie I want you to see. And I'm like, okay, that sounds really cool. I could sit and watch a movie with Frank. I mean, come on now. And so I said bye, and I went back. I said, okay, I'm gonna go back, take a little nap at my studio. I didn't really sleep last night, or at my little hotel, and they gave me their address and everything. So yeah, come on over. We got this condo over on the water, and you can come by at this time, like 5 o'clock or something. We'll have some dinner, and then we watch a movie and stuff. So I did that. I went back, and I'm just like again on cloud nine. I'm just thinking this is the most crazy thing, and I'm so thankful that I took that leap of faith and came out. And so I go back, take my nap, I come back again later, and I go to this place, and literally all the cool inks and paintings that weren't in the museum were just stacked against the wall. I mean, like a stack of each one of those, like 100 grand, 400 grand, million. I mean, these are like really valuable paintings and inks, and they're literally just piled up. And he has this little humble studio with like a little swivel chair and like some Mickey Mouse watercolors. And I mean, it was just like, dude, you got to be kidding me. I mean, like this is where the Grand Master works, and it was like just a little podunky light. And I mean, it was really humble, and it was beautifully humble. And it was so refreshing, just to see, here's a guy that is just otherworldly in his ability, and he's so chill about it, right? He's just like, and so what we did is we sat out on the porch. His wife's cooking dinner, and we are, Ellie's cooking dinner, and we're out there, and I'm going in, grabbing my favorite ink, grabbing a painting coming out, asking him questions about it, talking about my career, talking about where I'm going, what I'm doing, him giving me advice, telling me about aspects of his life that were really incredibly personal, like different phases he went through and the difficulties he had during those, some of the thyroid issues that he had, and how that really affected him greatly for a good portion of his life. Or not life, but like a good 5-8 year period, right, where he lost his ability to execute at that elite level because of this misdiagnosed thyroid aspect. And it was just really so refreshing to get and sit and talk to him and get to just be like, and he was so respectful and so sweet. And like I was worried because I'd heard so many different stories about Frank over the years. I was thinking, well, maybe he's a jerk, and I'm going to be like, oh my God, why did I go do that? But it exceeded every expectation of kindness for him. He was just so sweet. And it was another funny story is, so we go to eat, we're out there, and I'm looking for hours, and we're having a drink, and, beautiful sun going down over the Gulf. And I'm thinking, man, this is really cool. And then there we go to have dinner, right? And there's this pickled egg, right? And if anybody knows my eating habits, I eat like a 5-year-old. I mean, I literally have the worst palate ever. I don't like anything weird. I don't like anything, like sauces. I'm not French stuff. No, none of that. No, not anything that I eat with my eyes, I think is what is the deal. But anyway, so we go to sit down, and we get into this argument about this pickled egg, and I'm like, no, man, it's okay. You can have the egg. No, you can have the egg. No, I don't really want the egg. You can have the egg. And so here I am arguing with Frank Frazetta about a pickled egg I mean, it's just again, it's like what the I mean, what planet did I land on, man? I mean, and then we were literally going at it. It was so freaking funny. So he finally took the egg. We ate. It was like some spaghetti Italian dish, and then afterwards, he wants me to watch The Night of the Hunter.
Would you like me to tell you the little story of right hand, left hand? The story of good and evil?
Old black and white classic movie. He's like, you got to see this movie. It's just, I love it. It's my, and so he's sitting there on his knees on the carpet with a big bowl of candy, watching, and I'm there with him watching this movie, and him telling me what he likes about it and how the staging. You could really get a sense of how he solves problems and how he thinks like a director. He was very expressive and very just about how the lighting and the staging. It was really so fascinating to see, because and he has definitely eidetic memory, because he would say, I was talking to him earlier that afternoon about how he does animals, because I remember Bateman, who's one of the best wildlife painters, or considered one of the best wildlife painters, but hyper real, was asked who was his favorite animal painter, and he said Frank Frazetta, which you would have never thought would come out of his mouth, because Frank had this uncanny ability to capture the essence of the animal, but also embellish it with qualities that really they don't have, similar to what he would do with the human anatomy, which I admired so much, was add an extra set of abs, add this, add that, just for the dynamic aspect of the actual pose, right? So, but anyway, we were having this classic evening, and then it went on for a number of hours, and then of course it wound down. It was probably midnight. I think it was midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, I probably need to get going. I got an early flight, and he asked if I wanted to stay over, and I'm like, no, that's okay. I think I'm good, and I should have, because I left that place at 1 in the morning, and it was like literally Jurassic freaking Park. It was socked in everywhere, right? There, you couldn't see 3 feet in front of your hood of your car. And I have a really good visual memory. And I'm driving, and I got no map, and it's the middle of the night, and I don't know where I'm at. And I'm thinking, holy crap. I am lost in the Everglades in the middle of the night. It's creepy as Fong, right? And then I'm like, dude, where? There's gonna be a T-Rex. I have such an overactive imagination. I'm like, I am doomed. So I'm driving around and I'm just panicking. I'm doing circles. I mean, I think that was the road I turned on, and I think that was the and it literally took me forever to get back to the to my hotel, because it was like a 45-minute drive, right? And I had to remember every turn in the middle of the night with all this fog. I was freaked out. I got to my thing, didn't get another night's sleep, but I was so on a high. And the whole time I'm driving, I'm thinking about all the things that happened that day. I'm thinking, oh my God, I just got a fight with Frazetta about a freaking pickled egg. Oh my God, I just watched a movie with him. Wow. I'm just like thinking all these things that happened. So anyway, my experience with Frazetta was otherworldly. He was such a kind soul. Really, really sweet, and I just have nothing but good things to say about the guy. I mean, anybody that ever had a run-in with him or an issue with him, or maybe thought that's how he was, I can really tell you in my own words that he was such a kind man. I got a really great, and it'll pop up, but it's on the wall over there framed. But I brought out one of those pictures that I showed you and had him sign it to me. Because I just thought, what an experience, like having a critique by him, getting to meet him. This is like meeting Mozart, or something, or meeting, any famous, really exceptional talent. And so anyway, I just wanted to share a little bit of that with you. It's a Christmas time, and I'm just so thankful for so much, and thankful for the school I have, the gifts I have, the way I've been able to cultivate them and share them with other people, you guys out there, obviously, and that we're all kind of on the same struggle to bring forth beauty into the world and fight the good fight. And, if maybe this little story will bring a smile to your face or just kind of get a couple laughs about it. But it was really one of those, amazing moments in my life where, following your instincts, following your gut, and doing things when when you don't think, you can, or you don't have the money or whatever, you just make it happen when those opportunities come, because sometimes they never come around again. Frank had a stroke not long after I saw him, and from what I know, I was probably one of the last people to actually get a chance to really sit down with him casually, when he was fully there, cognitively, and just speak with him about his life and about my life and about what was going on and where I was heading. And so it was almost like, in a way, I felt like not passing of the torch, but it was just a very like it was a moment where I really believed that I was going to get to do what I thought I wanted to do. It was it was one of those definitive moments where you just say, yeah, I'm on the right path, and this is maybe the universe's way of helping me understand that or show me that. And so very thankful. And Frank, Ellie, rest in peace. Love you guys. It was an amazing experience. You will always be someone that pushes me forward to do the best work I can and honest. Because when I think of Frank Frazetta, I think kind of like Frank Sinatra, like he did it his way. It was Frank's way. I mean, and he stood by his convictions. I mean, here's a man that could have sold any number of his paintings for over $1 million while he was alive and still didn't do it. I mean, that speaks volumes about the belief he had in his work, the love he had for his work, and the integrity that he brought to his work. And you cannot agree entirely with his subject matter or what he does, the stages, but the execution, the power, the beauty, how many people he influenced from Spielberg to Lucas on down. I mean, it's amazing. So anyway, thank you for taking the time to hang out with me here and let me talk a little bit about one of my heroes. I'll do more of these kind of things on books and reviews and people that I've admired and why. But this was one that would kick off the new year, I thought. And like I said, I'll sprinkle those out throughout the year, different influences, different books, different people you may want to look into and try to delve a little bit more into with doing studies, master studies. I've done so much stuff from Frazetta, and he's influenced my art in many more ways than I can probably even imagine. But thank you, and have a great new year. And let's start it out with a bang. Keep push and play, like I always say. And hopefully maybe one of you guys down the road will be one of the next Frazettas. Why not? Okay? Take care. Cheers.